Like, hey, everybody. Once again, you have found your way to YouTube Live and the Music Nerds Record Club. This is number 26 of the monthly series. Our numbering system, which I only recently figured out, does not include our annual Best of the Year broadcast every December. Tonight, we are short staffed. We hope to have more of our friends back next month in June, but we have on my screen, to I guess maybe my right, your left. I don't know what it is on your screen, but we got Scott Greenberg out of Charlotte, North Carolina, host of the Debts No Honest Man Can Pay podcast, and my homie since the early 80s in Southeast Michigan. And my other homie from Cookeville, Tennessee, Mr. Mark Harry Creeder. And he is making his debut as the host of the Nerdcast tonight to talk about an amazing album by the Beastie Boys. And I'm going to turn it right over to our host of the night, Mark Creeder.
Thank you. Well, I do have my CD of this. I don't have it on vinyl. I wish I did. I'm jealous. I tried to find my introduction to that album was actually a cassette tape, which I used to listen to for years in my old car that still had a cassette deck in it. And then I also pulled this off of the shelf. This is a great read if you like the Beastie Boys. It's an awesome book. It's written by Mike D and Adam Horowitz. And it is all things Beastie Boys, and it's warts and all about their history, and it's just a great read. But I was trying to think about. I mean, I know for almost certainly that my introduction to rap music was, as so many, probably so many white guys, was Rapper's Delight. I was in college at Lynchburg, Virginia, at Lynchburg College, and I used to DJ dances in the for the school. And I had a buddy, Scott, and he and I used to DJ together. And inevitably in the night, people would request Rapper's Delight. So this was, I don't know, maybe 1983 or something, and and it was fun, and it was peppy, and it was dumb, and it was, always a fun thing to play and it was also always a good opportunity for the DJs to get a little bit of a break because it was a fairly lengthy piece. But my introduction to the Beastie Boys was actually really horrible. Like I think I'm fairly certain I hated these guys. I have very vivid memories of sitting on the stoop at my girlfriend's house in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I was going to graduate school. And her neighbors were a bunch of rugby players, and they would play Fight for Your Right to Party 24/7. And I hated it. And I hated them. I think I realized recently, I think I hated them more than I hated the song. I mean, I kind of couldn't deny that the song had a certain peppiness to it, but I hated those rugby players so much, and they played this song all the time. So, and I'm not even sure I knew it was the Beastie Boys. I just knew I was so tired of hearing it. And then somewhere in 2 years later, I think when they released Paul's Boutique, I'm not 100% sure what exactly drew me to it. I loved the title, Paul's Boutique. It made me think of a group of musicians I went to high school with who had a band that they kind of arbitrarily named Zito's Bakery. There was no Zito's Bakery, but they were just such a great band, and they mostly played kind of faux jazz music and stuff. But I love that, and so I see Paul's Boutique. That seemed kind of interesting. By this point, I was in the process of moving from North Carolina to Tennessee. It was a whole point in my life. I was relatively close to getting married for the first time. That was a whole other story that wasn't going to work out very well. I moving to Tennessee, I think it was really becoming apparent to me that I was probably never going to live in the North again. As much as I love New Jersey, it just didn't seem like it was going to happen. I was pretty sure, and I loved living in the South, and I loved Virginia, and I loved North Carolina. I suspected I was going to like Tennessee a lot. I was in the process of moving to Knoxville. And when I started listening to Paul's Boutique, there was just something about it. And I felt like in some ways, I felt like, first off, it was music. It sounded different than anything I'd ever heard, except that it was filled with music that I grew up on. So there were samplings of, Thin Lizzy and James Brown and the Beatles, a lot of Beatles, and the Eagles and Led Zeppelin. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, listen to all of this stuff that's woven into this music, and Pink Floyd and sound effects. And so in a way, it kind of reminded me of all the radio theater. I'd listened to a lot of radio theater when I was younger, National Lampoon's radio theater, the Fireside Theater group that did such outrageous stuff with records. Of course, Monty Python on vinyl. They did all these funny things. So suddenly I'm listening to music and I'm hearing these three guys who sounded like they grew up where I grew up. They sounded like New York and New Jersey. I went to school with A. Horowitz, not the same one. It's like I felt like I knew these guys. I loved that the music was so full of references to pop culture things that I immediately recognized, whether it was, the Brady Bunch, or references to the Honeymooners, or references to West Side Story, or references to all these things. I was so blown away by this album, and it became absolutely my favorite thing to listen to. And I was doing a lot of, at that time, driving back and forth on 40 from Greensboro to Knoxville, and Knoxville to Greensboro, and Greensboro to Knoxville, which is a pretty long haul. And I would pop that cassette tape into my 1972 Ford Gran Torino and just revel in this incredible music. And I just grew to love it. And I hadn't been introduced to, I always say the part of the wonder of discovering like Spike Lee was discovering things like Public Enemy and stuff. But, at this point, I'd never heard anything like this, and I loved every second of it. And eventually I did finally, begrudgingly, after a number of years, go back and get that very first album with that damned Fight for Your Right to Party. And, it's a lot more childish in a lot of ways, but it's still like, I just felt like these were three guys I wanted to hang out with. And so I completely fell in love with their music. I loved that a quote I saw, I think it was just on, online or something, referred to the album as the Sergeant Pepper of hip hop, which I loved. But it is an album that I fell so completely in love with. And then I fell in love with the band. And then I just would look forward to their new albums, and every one I would just eat it up. And like many bands that we've talked about and stuff, they'd get a new album, which would immediately make me go back, and I'd listen to the first couple of albums, and then I fell in love, and of course I fell in love with Check Your Head, and I fell in love with Ill Communication, and I just loved it all, and I loved them. And thanks to my dear friend Andy, I was at Bonnaroo to get to see, I think, one of their last live performances, because I think Adam Yauch passed away not 6 or 8 months, something like that, after I think they played at Bonnaroo. So that was amazing, that I was literally standing, there with Lee Papa and losing my mind to live Beastie Boys. And so their music still means the world to me. I mean, I listen to it summertime. It's almost feels like it's not summer if I haven't listened to Paul's Boutique at some point or another. And then as soon as I listen to Paul's Boutique, I have to go and listen to all of their albums because I just love those guys. And so that was the reason, like when I said that I would take the lead this time, it really was honestly my first instinct was Paul's Boutique. And then I thought, oh, maybe that, either maybe that's too done to death or maybe, whatever. But it really is. It's one of the, I don't know. It's just, I think it's one of my favorite albums ever. I mean, it is absolutely on my top 5 best albums of all time. I would have to have it if I was on a, desert island. I would want to have Paul's Boutique. I mean, I hear new things even today when I was listening to Johnny Royale. And I think I had just missed that when they created this whole backstory for this homeless guy named Johnny Royale, who was a pop star. And when they say, where is he from? And I think it's Mike D just throws out Tennessee. And I was just like, I don't think I'd ever heard that before, that he was originally from Tennessee. So anyway, that is in a loosey-goosey fashion the reason that I love Paul's Boutique, and I encourage everybody to listen to it. I think it's really fun, and it's incredibly listenable, and it's incredibly well produced by the Dust Brothers, and working with the boys. And man, I just love those guys. So that's my take on Beastie Boys and Paul's Boutique.
Greenberg, I feel like you got to go next, brother.
Okay. All right. So my first exposure to the Beastie Boys was back in the 80s. I don't know if any of y'all remember the song Cookie Puss, but it's a song that everybody needs to hear at least once, because it's not really a song. It's more like an orchestrated mixtape of prank calls to Carvel, but it's fun to listen to every now and then. But that was my introduction to the Beastie Boys. And then, they kind of took over the world a couple of years later. I liked Fight for Your Right to Party the first couple of times I heard it. And then after a while, it's like, with each time I heard that, or No Sleep Till Brooklyn, or anything off there, or Girls, just with every time I heard him, it just sounded frattier and frattier. So I'm like, I don't know if they're my jam. And then in the summer of '89, I was working college radio and Paul's Boutique came out. And that was my first exposure to it, spinning tracks like Hey Ladies and, the whole Bad Breath Onion Rings. Just to this day is like, when I think of Paul's Boutique, that's the first line I think of. For better or for worse. And I got a little exposure to Paul's Boutique, but like, this is pretty sophisticated. They are not happy with just sitting around doing the same thing. And so I applaud that. And I kind of put the Beastie Boys in a purgatory space of like, I think they're okay, but we'll see. I dug what I heard from Check Your Head, dug a little bit of what I heard from Ill Communication, but the turning point for me, mid 90s in Detroit, I was listening to a lot of public radio. And in 94, I went to Lollapalooza, and I was kind of like, okay, didn't really have any expectation of the Beastie Boys. I'm like, okay, they're going to be fun. They blew me the fuck away. I loved them so much. I loved the diversity. I dug the hip hop aspect of it. There was a little bit of punk there, of course. They did like the shit like Sabotage, which is still a banger. But the secret sauce for me, and I did a Beasties episode of Debts last year, because every year around Hanukkah, I do a 8 Lazy Nights episode where I pick 9 songs. Yeah, Hanukkah's 8 nights, but you have the starter candle. And it's always focusing on Jewish music and Jewish culture. And so I did mine about Beasties. And the thing for me about the Beasties, the special sauce, the thing that I fucking love the most about the Beasties, and they did it a lot of this when I saw them live, is their funky instrumentals. That shit just won me over. So I went to that. I became a Beasties fan at that point. Not as hardcore as Mark, but I was like, okay, they're cool. And the public station that I listened to played a lot of their instrumentals. So, it was just part of my DNA. They were great at Lollapalooza, and I remember them wrapping up their set and going, that was so much better than I ever could have expected. And 2 of my friends I went with were like, okay, we're going home. And I was kind of jealous of them because I was like, yeah, I could beat the traffic. And it's like, do I really need to stay for Smashing Pumpkins? And we ended up leaving early during Smashing Pumpkins because Billy Corgan was just being whiny and just sitting there and just like punching down on like other bands that he hated. And I get it. He was punching down on bands I didn't like either, but I'm just like, dude, you're headlining this festival. Stop punching down on people and just play your music, or just stop whining because you've made it. And I just wished I could go back in time and leave before the Smashing Pumpkins went on, and it just would have been the capper of a perfect day with the Beasties. I haven't really taken a deep dive in their whole catalog, but I picked up Paul's Boutique a couple of years ago on vinyl, as you can see, and I would spin it occasionally, and the things that jump out at me are just it's dense with samples. And I learned that with the Dust Brothers, they had all these beds, all these like collages together, and they were going to use them for their own use, like when they were DJing. And the Beasties wanted to work with them, and they came in and they're like, we want to rap over this. And they're like, are you sure? And they're like, no, we want to do it. And the Dust Brothers apparently were just like pleasantly flabbergasted, because they're like, they couldn't imagine anybody rapping over this. And just, it's a groundbreaking record. I took 2 listens to it in preparation for tonight. One was when I was on a walk, and I just, when I'm on the walk, I just want to be in the moment with it and just get the vibe. And then on Saturday night, I spun the vinyl and then looked at the lyrics while I was listening, so I could get a real true sense for it. And like, the Beastie Boys never purported to be, Shakespearean poets, nor should they ever have, but they were always masters of really funny and clever rhymes. Still a little bit bratty, but I loved that you could see as early as this that they wanted to leave the License to Ill life behind. And I admire that as human beings, they grew and they evolved, and they even, apologized for their bratty behavior when they were young. And I admire that quality in them. And I was listening to this and, reading about it, and, the whole thing that always popped up was not commercially successful, but highly influential. And I don't think the commercially successful thing means shit right now. I think the highly influential rings much louder. And yeah, it was a groundbreaker, in hip hop and in music. And my hot take, just like Kareem's like, what's your take? My take is Paul's Boutique is one of the greatest transitional albums of all time. And that's not a diss, because a lot of times people think of transitional albums as, well, it wasn't quite there. I'm like, I think that Van Halen's Diver Down is a transitional record because it's mostly covers, but it's also Eddie experimenting sonically. And it's like, there wouldn't be Ill Communication or a Check Your Head or a To the Five Boroughs or any of the instrumentals without Paul's Boutique. They had to go through Paul's Boutique to get there. I enjoyed this couple of listens because it brought, I'm like, before this, I'm like, there were only a couple of songs that really just I remembered. Hey Ladies, Shake Your Rump, Johnny Royale. I enjoyed getting the lowdown on that because I was like, okay, are they boasting about themselves all throughout? No, it's like, okay, Johnny Royale is like a portrait of this street person who used to hang out on one of their stoops. I forget who, but I enjoyed kind of getting the lowdown on all that. And I noticed that a lot of the songs are short. Like, okay, did we really need the 5-piece chicken dinner when it's just banjo music with them yipping? But I will fight anybody who disses Ask for Janice, because I love that so much, because it reminds me so much of these local commercials in Detroit that we would see on the local UHF stations, like the really low quality commercials with a lot of really cheesy reverb. So I will fight anybody who disses Ask for Janet or Janice. The B-Boy Booyabaz is interesting. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, do they need all of that? I also noticed that for me, side 1 is a lot stronger. I prefer side A to side B, but that's just me. It's a fun listen from beginning to end. But the bottom line is, it is probably one of the greatest transitional albums of all time. And it transitioned them from being bratty punks to being really just world-class, just practitioners of their art. And I didn't read the book, Mark, but I watched the quote-unquote documentary they did with Spike Jonze. Highly recommend that. And while we're talking about this, I think it's only fair to note that Mike D just released his first single. So I think that he's going to be dropping an album soon. So in a year where we're going to get solo music from Mike D and Michael Stipe, despite all the shit that's happening around us, it's good to be alive. So, Andy?
So, first of all, punk, I didn't know this till today, but they came from punk rock. And the punk rock to hip hop pipeline is real. Like today we have the punk rock to honky tonk pipeline. My friend Joey wrote a song about it. People who used to be in punk who are now in country. Both Sierra Farrell and Alinda Segarra of Hooray for the Riff Raff were basically street gutter punks, basically hobo gutter punks who took to folk music. And interestingly enough, I thought my Bluetooth was broken or my phone was broken when 5-piece chicken dinner came on. I really got some whiplash. And the thing, actually, I need to say at the top of this album. So I have not used recreational drugs and alcohol in a really, really long time, though I do intentionally abuse caffeine under the supervision of my mental health counselor. So I had a really strong afternoon cup of coffee, and I was doing some I was playing in my collage studio this afternoon, which I think is apropos because they say that this entire album is an audio collage. But within a few minutes of this album starting and all the way to the end, it made me feel stoned and drunk. And it reminded me of when I first discovered this genre of music. And I think I didn't really realize how different it was than anything else that was going on. So we've done very little hip hop on the Music Nerdcast, but we did A Nation of Millions, To Hold Us Back by Public Enemy early in the program. Rick was our host that month. And then of course we did Kendrick Lamar with your beloved son, Gus, not very long ago at all. But I've forgotten when I first started hearing sampling, how cool I thought sampling was. And I remember I make mixtapes. Like, I don't have audio engineering capabilities at all. I don't have Pro Tools, and I don't know how to knob the knobs or noodle the noodles or any of those things. But I remember making mixtapes with like and taking samples from television. And during the beginning of the Iraq War in '91, I made a mixtape about the Iraq War, and I remember sampling President Bush Sr.'s voice and like putting him into like making like a loop of President Bush being really terrible about killing Iraqis, you know? But so like the way in which the kind of the grooviness of this album kind of like just settles in. And so I wasn't trying to like analyze it or whatever. Like very shortly into my listen this afternoon, I was just tripping balls. I mean, I was like, what did I just hear? And it's very fun when you're a sober person to catch a free, you know, non-toxic buzz off of anything. I do it with exercise, meditation, but this album really took me by surprise in terms of just how funky and weird it was. So I definitely didn't realize this till today, but I definitely had a bias against the Beastie Boys. And one of the reasons why I never really gave the Beastie Boys any time was I had a bias against them. And I thought it was the rugby players. I thought it was, and I did, as I told you, I listened to the album for the first time today. I did a little bit of reading about it online, and then I listened to a couple of different podcasts about it. And the term came up in the first podcast I was listening to: frat rap, frat boy rap, frat, you know. So this is like music. This is white hip hop for frat boys, you know, and like just the thought of it makes me want to vomit, you know, like it's just like, oh, gross, you know. And so I had a very one-dimensional, very cookie cutter, very contempt before investigation, you know, opinion of the Beastie Boys based on a very superficial kind of, you know, cultural bias. And so when I realized that they had a cultural bias against the cultural bias that they had created by being these inflatable penis guys, you know, and that they were rebelling against themselves by making this album, that alone just makes it really, really interesting. And that they were, things I learned today, that they were struggling in their relationship with Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin, you know, that they were kind of like not sure about the music industry. And they were just, and I just still to like, because nowadays with computer mixing and people, you know, sampling and everything, but like all this is before people were making stuff on their Macintoshes. I mean, this is, so I just like revolutionary. I think we might've read the same article, Mark, because I heard you mentioned the Sgt. Pepper of hip hop line. Well, I think in this same article, maybe that I read, that they also coined the phrase sampledelia as like a kind of psychedelic sound based on a lot of samples. And I love that. There is a band from the same time period from New York on an album, on a label called Shimmy Disc. And to give you like, you know, when people sort of like own their subculture, like up front in the name of the band was Bong Water, all one word. And they were on a label called Shimmy Disc, and they were psychedelic folk, psychedelic rock. And they used a ton of samples. And I used to get really high and just sit around and listen to Bong Water albums. And a lot of it was how my brain would kind of melt a little bit when you would be surprised by some of these samples. And then a dozen years after this, I went through a very brief phase where I got really into electronic dance music, particularly psychedelic trance. There was a group of DJs out of Asheville, North Carolina that we became friends with. My ex-wife and I hosted a rave on our land in Liberty and had a bunch of these psytrance DJs come. And I loved, you know, getting high and dancing and then hearing these samples drop, because they would always mess with you. You know, the samples would always mess with you, you know. Some news clipping about UFOs or something would just drop into the middle of this dance party. And so, yeah, when that chicken dinner came on today, I mean, I just like, I was like, there was a disturbance in the force. You know, I expected, you know, I don't know what was happening. I really thought that I had switched apps. I'm like, oh, is YouTube? Do I have too many apps open on my phone, and did my phone accidentally switch to YouTube or the radio? Earlier today, my a local friend of mine, a coworker, new friend, new coworker, texted me out of the blue and said, "What is up with 93.3?" And I'm like, I don't listen to the radio. I barely listen to 88.5. I should listen to 88.5 more. But 93.3 is just like a pop station here in Cookeville. And I said, well, I don't know what's up with 93.3, but I was driving with friends when I got the text. And so I just turned on 93.3 and it was dead air. And apparently that was what my colleague wanted to know, is why is there dead air on 93.3? And I'm flattered that this colleague would consider me to be a knowledgeable resource to ask about such obscurities as why does 93.3 have dead air right now. Well, anyways, I turned it on. I was like, I couldn't hear anything. I turned it up and then I forgot about it. But I was driving with some friends in the car and we were on our way for a hike. And literally, like about halfway there, all of a sudden this music comes on really loud, and breaking the silence. And I was like, wait, my Spotify's not on. That was the reaction I had later today with the 5-piece chicken dinner, and really the whole thing, the whole experience. It was startling and surprising and groovy and fun. And it has forever changed my opinion of the Beastie Boys. Mark Creeder, you've changed my opinion of William Shakespeare and the Beastie Boys now. And God bless you for it.
I think that's our cue for all of us to jump in the pool.
Now let's have a free-for-all on this, and then we can merge into other topics in about 10 or so.
Two things I thought of. First off, I'm so glad that I have changed your opinion about two things that are so incredibly important to me. But I also thought one of the things I love about the Beastie Boys is their music has been very inspiring to me artistically when I've been working on shows. It was back, I think, in 2015 when I directed that Midsummer Night's Dream. I literally added a whole segment at the end of the play where they danced to a Beastie Boys number. And it was completely self-indulgent on my part. And I decided it was I think I used Hello Ladies. It was Puck being mischievous and manipulating the characters on stage, the mechanicals, because Shakespeare makes a reference to them doing a song. I can't remember the exact word they use. And the Duke says, no, you're fine, stop. And I just decided that would be a moment for a music break. And it was a rare thing, because it was so self-indulgent, but I just decided I loved every second of it. I used the whole song. I just blatantly wove it into the show. And then I was in a production of Antony and Cleopatra that was modern dress. It was essentially a gangster Antony and Cleopatra that Lee Papa directed. Andrew, Lee, of course. And one of my favorite moments, a big battle scene where we're all running around with guns because it was modern dress and leather jackets, and he scored the whole thing to Sabotage. And it was one of my favorite moments of my life, was getting to run on stage. I would hear the opening strains, and that was my cue to get to stage and start killing people. And I loved it. So,
Chloe Zhao, doing the dance breaks on the set of Hamnet, she stole that from you.
I'd like to think so. But
so
anyway,
I have to ask you guys, I'm jealous you both went to see Bruce. How was that?
I was hoping we were going to go there. I figured since it's just the three of us. Mark, are you ready to make that pivot now? Do you have anything else you need to say about the Beastie Boys?
No, I'm ready. I feel very satiated.
You guys, I feel so changed, and I give both of you so much credit. And I'm writing this essay, and I'm not done with it yet, about my journey to the E Street Nation and my citizenship in the E Street Nation. But Scott, I had goosebumps. My goosebumps had goosebumps. I got cold chills. I felt like I was living in history as history was being made, and everybody around around us was so nice and so interesting.
Right.
In front of Mark and I, there was two or three families. I couldn't figure out how many. I think there was maybe a dad and a couple of different moms from a couple of different families and kids. And the moms and the kids and the dads, they didn't sit down the entire time, even when we wanted to sit and had to look around them. And they were dancing and singing along. And they all had on like one of the ladies had on an old Springsteen shirt and like a red bandana tied around. I mean, like they spent time like. I went to see Florence and Machine on Friday, and I went to see Springsteen on Saturday. And it's not the same as the Florence fan base was very fashionable in a Florence way, but people got dressed up for Springsteen. I lost track of how many T-shirts I saw that said "One Boss, No Kings" on a, like, I mean, people had custom made T-shirts. The love in that building,
right?
And I know some people like a short concert, 45, like a lot of like indie groups play 45 minutes and don't even think twice about it. It was almost 3 hours, and it was so it was a sumptuous feast.
It's life affirming. It
was freaking amazing.
It's like a house party, a revival meeting, and a bar mitzvah rolled into one.
Yep.
And you saw him on a Saturday night. I've seen Bruce 14 times, but nothing beats seeing a great band on a Saturday night.
Yeah, and with a full house that was just so there for him. Plus, and they were there for us, and we were there for them, and that energy just fills that venue. And they really, I think the sound quality in that particular arena is really good. I've seen him there now. I think that was my third or fourth time seeing Bruce in that space. And I mean, normally I wear some kind of, noise reduction, something or other, ear protection. And I didn't that night. And I did not have any tinnitus problems after the show. I mean, that was amazing. It was amazing.
So, and I'm also jealous of you guys because he had a mission. He wasn't touring behind a record. He wasn't touting the greatest hits. I've seen the set lists, and they're tailored to his mission, which is all about the No Kings movement. The closest I ever came to that was, I don't know if you remember this, back in 2004, they had the Vote for Change tour. And I saw that show at Cobo Hall in Detroit, and it was Bruce and REM and Bright Eyes, and he brought out John Fogerty, and that was really cool. But I would have loved to have been there for that show, because it's a mission. Like, two of my favorite types of people in the house, all defenders of all who are righteous on East Street and anti-MAGA. And I felt really comfortable and safe at the No Kings rallies. And I feel like I would have gotten the same vibe there. And I'm happy that you guys got to see this. And I'm hoping that I get to see him a bunch more before he hangs it up. And I hope he never hangs it up.
Really,
yeah.
You guys, I'm so embarrassed, because the only records before we had our Nebraska deep dive in the fall, the only records I'd really listened to were the live 75 to 85, Born in the USA and Born to Run. And that was really and the Seeger sessions, and Magic. I'm sorry. So I'd listen to the Seeger sessions. Of course, that's more covers. I listened to Magic a lot when it came out, because that was the year I was going to see Springsteen with Mark twice. But my first show was a disaster, because I was blackout drunk. And I was probably not, poor Matt Bassett probably was just like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? I left him by himself in his seat, and I just wandered around the venue in a fog. I don't really remember a whole lot about that show. And then the show at Bridgestone, I knew a lot of the songs, but so this time I started, several days before our show, just listening. And I know some people want to be surprised, and you, of course, who know the whole catalog, Mark, you can be surprised. But I pay money to Nugs, and I don't use it enough. And so I just got on my Nugs, and so I listened to the whole show like a couple of times. So I knew what I was in for. But it was so cool, exactly what you're saying, Scott, to see what his tailor-made set list is for this particular moment. But then that's led me down these rabbit holes that I've never listened to the Ghost of Tom Joad album from the 90s, that folk album. And now I'm so obsessed with that album that it's inspired deeply by the American writer John Steinbeck. Now, I know I read of Mice and Men in like middle school or high school. I've never read Grapes of Wrath. I'm reading Grapes of Wrath right now because of Springsteen. No, and I'm reading Grapes of Wrath right now because of Springsteen. And I've listened to Ghost of Tom Joad like many times in the last week or so, and I'm really interested in this album Wrecking Ball because it's got that kind of Celtic rock thing and that folk punk thing going. I mean, I've not even and then I guess his album that was kind of like his big comeback album around the time that U2 had the really long titles, something about being left behind, where they're all
Rising.
The Rising, yes, The Rising is unbelievable.
Rising. I'm like, I'll talk to you about records individually. I can give you my opinions about all of them all damn day long, and we would be here all damn day long. Magic.
There's some I still haven't even got to, Scott. I've only gotten to about 6 of them. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, my least favorite Bruce record, and the thing is, even though my least favorite Bruce record has some great moments, but I think my least favorite is Working on a Dream. My absolute favorite is Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Yeah, mine too. I love Darkness.
My favorite 21st Century Bruce record, though, has got to be Magic. Although Western Stars is beautiful.
Western Stars is beautiful. And the film that they released with it was, since he didn't, really tour with it, instead he did the film for it. And the film is, I got to see that. I saw that at Hollywood 27 in Nashville on the big screen. And it was just great. It really was great.
I know he doesn't play it. He needs to at least play Tucson Train. I mean, Lil Steven covered it live. Did they play Clampdown?
Yes. Yeah. The opening where he's giving this speech about everything that's wrong with MAGA and everything, and they said, and now we're in this war. What is it good for? I mean, the speech goes into that song without a pause.
Right.
He's just talking about all the things that are wrong with Trump, and now we're in this illegal, immoral war. What is it good for? I mean, and then from that into Born in the USA. I mean, what an opening. And then Wrecking Ball and Clampdown. Is that right? In that order, I think it is. Oh, my God.
It was incredible. It was really incredible.
Did he do like the usual version of Born in the USA? Because I would love to see him do the Electric Nebraska version.
I've heard him do that. He did the regular one at this show. But I have heard him play that, kind of stripped down one. And
I've heard him do the stripped down one. Like when I saw him for Devils and Dust.
Right.
But I would love to hear him do the version that he did on the Electric Nebraska.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
No, that would be really cool.
You know what, you guys, I'm so glad we're talking about this right now. He is on stage at MSG right now.
Oh, man.
He is on stage at MSG, like, as we're talking about this.
Oh,
yeah.
Before we get too distracted.
So, like, I don't think I'd ever listened to American Skin 41 Shots before. That song is unbelievable.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Until this tour, unbelievable. And
that's the most Andy Smith, Bruce Springsteen song there is.
And then the Streets of Minneapolis, the whole where he gets the entire arena shouting "Ice Out Now" was so incredible. It was so incredible. And then the sing along, the corny sing along to "Hungry Heart." So after Streets of Minneapolis, he goes into Promised Land's "Two Hearts, Hunger Heart." Like everything, like this. You were talking a lot about the set list, the structure of this set list. And my wife, who not only has never seen Springsteen, doesn't really listen to Springsteen, she was blown away. I mean, she was blown away by it.
He's got more energy than the Energizer Bunny, and he is the best band leader on earth. And I think he gets that from James Brown.
I could see that. I love watching him. I love watching those interactions.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been so fun over the years, too, how he brings people in, musicians who played on the Seeger sessions
Yep.
have become part of the E Street Band. Tom Morello. I mean, Rage Against the Machine does this amazing Ghost of Tom Joad, and the next thing you know, Bruce is like, "Why don't you come play with us?" I mean, it was just, I love that, and even even when Little Steven left after Born in the USA and Nils joined, and then they ended up bringing both of them in. I just think it's so cool how he.
It is. I actually got
musicians.
I got to see Bruce with Tom Morello in 2014, and just after seeing him with Nils and with Little Steven together, and to see with Tom Morello, it was like trying a different flavor of ice cream. And then, to be able to have seen all these different incarnations was kind of sort of a gift.
And then the last time when I saw him on the Only the Strong Survive tour, Max was not there. Max's son was the drummer on that show. So I love those two, like, that connection, that sense that the E Street is a family. It's just
Jake Clemens. Jake Clemens is the nephew.
Yes. Yep.
Of Clarence. I mean, that's amazing. And I'm sorry, I should have asked you this that night, Mark. Was Patty there?
She was not. They had a Patty lookalike who was singing.
That would have been Susie Tyrell, who also. No,
Susie was there too, but they had a woman. It was, but it wasn't Patty. But she kind of looked like Patty.
Lisa Lowell. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and it was I mean, I've seen Patty play. I saw.
Well, Patty's got health issues that she's got.
In addition to reading Grapes of Wrath for the first time, I'm dabbling in his autobiography, Born to Run, but I'm listening to a biography by Peter Ames Carlin simply called Bruce, which is just a very straightforward biography, and I'm loving it. And learning so much. But I mean, I have not even gotten to Western Stars. There's so many rabbit holes that, but when I was having a really good time with Wrecking Ball, the Seeger Sessions, The Rising, High Hopes. And then when I got to the Ghost of Tom Joad, I mean, because it has that kind of vibe that Nebraska had as far as that roots vibe, but the lyrics on the Ghost of Tom Joad are just phenomenal.
So here's I like Ghost of Tom Joad. I don't love it. I think there's great moments. I think that it doesn't have the immediacy that Nebraska had. Well, Nebraska was lightning in a bottle that nobody saw coming. But there's parts of Tom Joad I love, but I don't return to it too often. The title track is great. Youngstown, there's some other great songs.
Oh, and his Youngstown. I mean, it wasn't any different than the way that I've seen it played before, but Youngstown is just such an amazing showstopper.
So that's in the set right now, and it fits just perfectly. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
But if we're going to talk like the quote unquote acoustic albums, quote unquote, Nebraska, I like the best. I think I like Devils and Dust.
Yeah,
like under that, because there's like a little bit more variety in there. And I'm like, it's not all acoustic. Track 2 is an absolute banger. And I like Tom Joad. I don't dislike it. But to me, it's just like after you've done something like Nebraska, it's like anything is going to pale in comparison. But there are 2 more things I want to cover before we break up for the evening. I wanted to quickly tell you what I've been listening to. The new Casey Musgraves, which I like a lot better than her last 2. Not as much as Golden Hour, but I like it a lot. And Emeralds by Parlor Greens, instrumental supergroup. It's their 2nd album. Jimmy James, who used to be in the Delvon Lamar organ trio, Tim Carmen from GA20, and Adam Scone from the Sugarman 3 and Scone Cash Players. It is just high quality funk, soul, jazz. Just makes me happy. But I wanted to bring up the band that has been generating so much buzz over the last month and a half or so. Angine de Poitrine. I am here for them.
Tell us more, because I think Mark and I are hearing about them for the first time right now. Mark, are you?
Yeah, I've never heard of them.
Angine de Poitrine. Maybe you don't recognize the name, but I'm like, they did a session for KEXP earlier this year, and those videos went viral. I've actually seen videos of them before that, and they're kind of like these two dudes from Quebec, and they're all decked out in polka dots and these like weird masks, like they're like characters from an existential children's book, and they kind of portray themselves as being from another planet, and they speak in another language, but they play this really infectious math rock. And I'm surprised you have, I'm like, maybe it's because I like scroll on TikTok and Instagram a lot, so their videos pop up, but I love them because they are the antithesis to AI slop. And the fact that they are the first math rock band to get this kind of buzz kind of makes me happy. So it's like, if you like math rock, if you like King Crimson, you know, if you just like people who are just subversive in the best ways, in a fun way, they're fun. The guitarist, he plays, it's a double neck guitar. One neck is a bass, one neck is a guitar, and he plays loops, and he's got all these foot pedals, and he's barefooted, so he's like tweaking knobs with his toes. But they bring me a lot of joy. I haven't purchased any of their albums, but every time I see their videos, I'm like, I'm here for them, and they're going to take over the world, and I will be there to greet them when they are marching down.
Somebody needs to take over the world.
Yes.
Well, I love, this is the best part of what we do, and it's not just the three of us, but that people like us do for each other everywhere, all over the world, is turn each other on to good music that they haven't heard before. So I will definitely be checking out Angine de Poitrine from Quebec. Do they sing in French?
They don't really sing.
Okay.
I'm like, they make little noises here and there, but like, I've seen like footage of their press conferences, and they just make these noises. They're really like committing to the "we're aliens" bit. And
they do costumes. They're into the whole new wave of costume things. Oh, Mark Creeder, you're gonna die just at the costumes. Oh my God!
I made myself a note.
Yeah.
I've been listening to two.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lee Papa suggested two new bands.
I think we need to ding a bell every time you say Lee Papa.
Lee Papa.
Lee Papa. Take a shot every time Mark says Lee Papa.
Well, he is my hetero life mate, so. But he suggested I would really like Weird Nightmares. That's the name of the band, and I do. They're odd and interesting and kind of fun, and the other is a musician named called Tyler Ballgame, and again, these just two odd bands, but Lee thought I'd like them, and he was right. I've enjoyed both of them.
I've heard of Tyler Ballgame, but never actually heard him, so now I know.
It's kind of interesting.
Right.
And Weird Nightmares was quite fun. I've now listened to them. They have a new album out, and then that kind of led me into a couple of their other ones, and they're really good. I like them a lot. So
about 2 years ago or a year ago, I think it was 2 years ago, a friend of mine in one of the groups I'm in introduced me to Brown Horse, and they're an Americana band from Europe, but they play Americana. It's like it's rock, kind of psychedelic rock infused Americana, maybe like Band of Horses, Band of Heathens, like Fust and Flory and other bands that I already love and adore. Anyway, Brown Horse are doing their first ever American tour, and they're not coming to Nashville, and they're coming to Detroit. And I just decided I need to go to Detroit to see them in Detroit. So we're leaving in a couple days.
Where are they playing?
They're playing at the Lager House, tiny venue.
Yeah.
So I'm going to that show. In Detroit on Friday. I'm giving a poetry reading in Detroit on Saturday, which I'm very excited about. And I'm reading a bunch of new anti-AI poems. I have a little anti-AI collection that I'm very, very proud of. They're silly, but I'm very, very proud of it. Anyway, so their new album is called. I should have had this all ready to go. By the way, while I'm looking up the title of this Brown Horse album, Scott, I do love the new Casey Musgraves a lot. I need to give it another listen. But the Brown Horse album is called Total Dive. Dive. I've been spinning the new Noah Kahan album, The Great Divide. I'm really still into the Easter album, the Easter Lily album that U2 EP that U2 dropped about a month ago. My buddy Hayden Mattingly, a Cookville artist, just released an album called Postcards, which I absolutely love. And I'm looking through my listening on the Scrobbler, and most of my listenings are Bruce Springsteen albums. So like my most listened to albums in the last month include Ghost of Charmed Road, Wrecking Ball, The Rising, and Tunnel of Love.
I love Tunnel of Love.
Me too.
The album that came out last year by Florence and the Machine, I loved her album from 3 years ago or 4 years ago called Dance Fever, but I hadn't really gotten into Everybody Scream. Well, now that I've seen Florence live, I've revisited Everybody Scream, and it is a really wonderful album.
Does Everybody Scream?
Yeah, they do. We scream she screams. Yeah. She screams, we scream, everybody screams for Florence and the Machine. We scream, we all scream for Florence and the Machine. I mean, dude, the outfits of Florence and the Machine were crazy, how people dressed up for her concert. I actually went on Tracks too, and I can't remember what it's called. Oh, Faithless. There's an album on the
great album,
the Lost album collection, Tracks 2. There's an previously unreleased album called Faithless. I absolutely loved that. Then I keep going down. Like almost all my top albums in the last month have all been Springsteen. The River, Tunnel of Love.
You can't go wrong with any of them.
No.
Carsey Blanton has a new album called Everything Is Great. She's an amazing political singer, and I'm seeing her. I'm going actually to Pittsburgh, you guys, next week to see Springsteen a second time, because if one is good, two is going to be better. And then I'm seeing Carsey Blanton the next day in Indianapolis. There's a band or a singer-songwriter called Chicago Farmer. Has a new album out called Homemade. That's very, very good. Benjamin Todd has a new album out. Oh, Josiah and the Bonnevilles just dropped a new album on Friday called As Is. Drayton Farley's new album, I need to get back to it. It's called Heavy Duty Heart. But I'm just looking through my listening. Almost all my listening in the last month has been Springsteen. It's just crazy. Mark, do you know Ryan McReynolds, local guy Ryan McReynolds?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So Did you ever know his band from the 90s? He was in a very, very successful ska band from the 90s called Dimples Malone.
Oh, yes. Actually, I think I saw them.
And they toured a lot. So anyway, I finally listened to Dimples Malone, a Cookville ska band from the 90s. I listened to the new Milk Carton Kids album. That was pretty good. I haven't gone back to it though. Yeah. Oh, I listened to that Rachel Brooke album. Scott, we talked about that.
Right.
A band we saw at High Water. We haven't had a podcast since we went to High Water. Richie, Mitch, and the Coal Miners. And I had heard of them. They'd been kind of in my peripheral vision. They absolutely blew us away at the High Water Festival. They were like the surprise of the festival for us. Richie, Mitch, and the Coal Miners. Oh, His Golden Messenger has a new album out called I'm People. Yeah, I listen to music pretty much all day, every day. So that's what I do.
I did want to show you this. My sister sent me this New Jersey magazine that's got a great article about the new Center for American Music, that's up in Jersey at Monmouth University. So she and I are planning to go. I'm not sure yet when I'm going up to Jersey, but she said she's like, oh, we're going. I'd love to go. So
an official Springsteen museum, Scott. Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Well, I love in the article he's talking about the fact that they're focusing on American music, and he said initially they were talking about the possibility of it just being a focus on his music, and I love his quote in there is he said, I'm a little hesitant. What if I do something really stupid and embarrass the building? I just love that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm looking forward to going there.
I actually applied for a job there.
Did you?
Yeah, but I did not get it.
That would have been great. That would have been a perfect job for you, Scott.
Yes, it would have.
Well, we have spent another hour with the Music Nerds monthly podcast, video podcast, available on YouTube and on YouTube. I do have it back up on. We're back on Facebook Live, but I'm on the Teacher on the Radio page. I couldn't get it to stream from my personal page, but it's now back on Facebook Live on the Teacher on the Radio public page. I think Rick is going to do us the theme for teach the theme for next month. I believe we're going to do it on June the 15th, tentatively. And Amy Rock apologizes for her long absence and says she would love to join us, and will try to join us in June.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. This was great.
David Byrne was amazing, and I got to see Amy at David Byrne, and it'd been too long since I'd seen her, so that was fantastic.
No, I thought about joining you guys, but I just couldn't get it together.
Mark and I had a big week with school ending and Gus graduating. It was a big week.
Yes.
Scott, what do you always say at the end of the show?
Have fun storming the castle.
Yay! See you next month, everybody.
Bye, guys.